What are the people saying, and what's the mood at Westminster? To find out, we're joined by former aide to UK Cabinet Minister, Mr. Leon Emirali, based in the UK. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Very good. Are you vaccinated?
I got vaccinated on Tuesday, which I'm very pleased about.
Excellent, excellent. Out of curiosity, which one did you get? Is that a thing that you can ask, by the way, do you think?
I think it is. I mean, I think everyone under a certain age, I'm not entirely sure which age, but younger people are getting the Pfizer vaccine,
right.
which is the one that I've given. I think that's been approved as well for children, 12 to 15-year-olds. That was approved for use of the Pfizer vaccine on children today as well. So that seems to be the vaccine of choice.
And if you're older? I'm asking only because I'm due to get vaccinated next Tuesday. I'm just asking for that reason.
It's AstraZeneca for those with slightly greyer hair, shall we say?
Okay.
But it's AstraZeneca for the older groups.
All right, great. Great. Let's get back to why I've got you here. Why we've got you here. So a lot's happening, obviously, in the UK. Let's start with the mood of the people. Are they aching to get back to normality? Have there been any protests or marches lately? How are things there? I mean, the mood of the people in the UK right now.
I think the mood has been lifting. There was a great deal of angst slightly earlier in the year, but now the Prime Minister set out this roadmap for lifting restrictions on June the 21st. The big issue that I think a lot of people are worried about is foreign travel, and your earlier piece touched on it. Portugal now being removed from the so-called green list, which was the only real European destination that Brits could go on holiday to. So there's a little bit of anxiety about that. I think Brits love a holiday. We want to get abroad and out in the sunshine. But there's also some optimism that actually the rates, the numbers are looking pretty good. And that is down predominantly to vaccination. But I think a lot rides on what happens on June 21st, whether or not the country does reopen fully or whether there will still be some restrictions in place.
OK, well, let's talk about that, restrictions. What restrictions are in place right now?
Well, a number of restrictions around social distancing, for example. Masks still have to be worn indoors on public transport, for example. There's limits on the numbers of people that can gather in one space. So, for example, football stadiums can't be full to capacity at this stage. So there are limited restrictions still in place, but I think people are just desperate to get back to normality. We've had such an amount of disruption over the past year and a half that really the country just want to get back to how it used to be prior to that. And it might seem small and trivial, but to people who've had their freedoms restricted, it's important.
Very, very, as we all do. We all want to get back to normal. Speaking about, how things are with businesses, I mean, a lot of, we've been hearing around the world, our different guests, the sort of small and medium-sized enterprises, businesses, they've really had to sort of shut up shutters and close down. What's it been like in the UK?
It's been very similar, and I have a lot of sympathy for businesses that have had to deal with this disruption. We've had this sort of undulating on and off lockdowns where restrictions have existed or people have been allowed out, and businesses have had to cope with that. So not only have they had to go long periods of just simply being shut, of not being able to make money, they've also been having to deal with these changes. Social distancing, for example, restaurants, pubs, bars have to adapt to these new restrictions. So I do feel for them. However, there has been significant support from the government, from the Treasury, who have been able to support these businesses with a furlough scheme, essentially paying for the wages of people who aren't able to work, and lots of support for businesses as well. So
is that still going on? Is that still going on, or did that happen right at the beginning, back last March?
It started in March and it's still going on, and I think that there is a debate being had at the moment as to how long that does go on for, because effectively we're living in an artificial economy right now. We don't know who's in a job and who won't be in a job once it ends. But I think the support will end once the restrictions end, and we'll have to see the impact that has on the wider economy for sure.
Do you think that's motivating Johnson, Boris, about if he lifts the restrictions, he can stop paying for people as well? Is that a factor, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's been a big debate about the balance between public health and the economy, and the two really are intrinsically linked in many ways. So I do think that the Prime Minister is going to be thinking with one eye on not only are our hospitals able to cope with the amount of people being admitted for COVID-19, but also is our economy going to be able to survive this shock? And I think that that's part of the anxiety that he has, that business owners have, and that the general public have, is the impact that we're seeing on businesses, and I'm sure that will play a factor in his decisions.
No doubt, no doubt. And this Indian variant, I mean, this can't be. I mean, it seems like every other day there's a new variant of this dreaded disease or dreaded, thing. How has that affected? Obviously, are the borders not closed in the UK? Can people still fly in? I mean, how are these new variants getting there?
People can still fly in. That again has been one of the big criticisms of the government, is that we acted too slowly to shut our borders in the first instance, and even now there are still people travelling in from around the world for essential travel, business travel. But the variants, as you say, I think it's something we're just going to have to end up living with. We can't keep having these fears every time that a new variant emerges. Naturally, that is going to happen in the life cycle of this virus, and thankfully, the vaccines seem to be resistant to any of these variants. So as long as that continues, I think it's just something we all have to put up with and hope it doesn't cause too much disruption in the long term.
Well, let's hope so, indeed. I mean, the UK are doing quite well with their vaccination drive. I mean, I think you guys are at 60 or 70% nationally. So that must be a good way, sort of a positive thing. I want to touch a little bit upon, some of these red zones that Johnson seems to be coming out with. I assume this is something to do with data, but personal opinion here, I want your personal opinion. Could this be politically driven? Like, I'm not going to send my tourists to you. I did a program the other day about how some governments could probably blackmail or, use a strong arm on COVID vaccine political movement. And I just wanted to get your take on, could Boris Johnson be, you say, Portugal, chuck us a couple of billion euro and I'll send my tourists your way. I know it's hypothetical. I know it's just a joke. It's Friday. I'm ballparking it here.
We'll go with it. Look, I don't think that's happening, and I certainly hope it isn't happening. But there is diplomatic and economic issues here. We have to think about the dynamic that international relations has after this pandemic, because once we were all travelling all over the place wherever we wanted very freely, and now there isn't that fluidity of travel anymore. So I do think that a lot of countries are going to be trying to do bargains with one another, saying, look, we'll open the incentives for your citizens if you do something in return, especially those countries who rely on tourism, Portugal, Spain, Turkey, to an extent as well. So, the Brits are a big tourism market, and I think that there is going to be some conversations along those lines. But at the minute, I think that it's being led by data and the science.
Let's hope so. Leon Emirali, thank you very much, sir, for your time today, and thank you for joining me on A News. Have a good weekend, sir. Speak to you again soon. Stay safe. Be well.
Thank you.